All right, so the first thing he does then is he looks at Hume with regard to Hume's account of causality.
Yeah, kind of a big issue when you're dealing with causes. Both you have the cause and effect, and you trace everything back to a single point, or you have to believe the universe is never ending, so you never come to that point. But either way, he goes on here that says Hume believed that there is an external world, and he could have reliability for his reason about his experience in the world. Not everything in science, unfortunately, returned to him. He says when you see something, what you're seeing is not exactly the cause of it. What you're seeing is just kind of what happened. You're not seeing. He uses this example of a cue ball. When you're playing pool and you hit the cue ball towards the 8-ball, you're not seeing what caused the cue ball to interact with the 8-ball. What you're seeing is the ball moving away. You hear a click, and that's pretty much it. What he says here is you don't really see the glue that links the motion to the motion of the other. So he says if you believe that the cue ball was inhabited by tiny fairies, that those tiny fairies, once they made a clicking sound, they're the reason that the 8-ball moves away, because they push it, and that pushing creates a clicking sound.
Yeah. So it's the fairies that cause
it's the fairies that cause it. So we're looking for the why.
Yeah.
Why did it happen?
Yeah.
Not so much what happened. We know what happened.
Right.
The ball moved away from the cue ball.
Right.
But why did it happen? Well, it's clearly the fairies. Well, it's either that, or there's some sort of magnetic field maybe, or F equals ma. That could be one. You don't exactly know the reason why. Those are kind of
right. And
your explanation.
Good. And so Hume is trying to get us to see that there's really no necessary connection. No, that all we experience, because that's all we have is our sense experience, is we hit the one ball, it comes up to the other ball, there's a click, and the other ball moves. We can't, so causality for us is just that activity, because that's all we see and that's all we experience. There's no necessary metaphysical, magical, maybe there is.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
It could be, thing that's causing the one ball to allow for the movement of the other ball. Mm-hmm. Because we don't experience that. Right? All we experience
that's all we have. That's
all we have is our experiences, right? Our sense perception. So all we experience is we hit the one ball, it moves to the next ball, there's a click, and then the next ball moves. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Right.
All right? So causation then, as he says in this section, is just one darn thing after another. That's all we experience is one thing after another. Right? And so his only point was to ask what we actually observe. And it's true, we don't observe the necessary connection. All we see in cases of causation is one thing happening and then another thing happening. We see in Hume's term only what Hume called constant conjunction, right? These things are constantly conjoined. They're constantly linked in our experience with one another. And so we get into the habit, we might say, or the expectation that when this thing happens, then the next thing is going to happen. But we never see causality.
Right. So we're Mayans back in the day, and we, of course, take our children up to be sacrificed because we care about the whole of the Mayan people. We throw our babies into the fire. We have a prosperous season. Oh, that was so good of the crop gods to accept our sacrifice. Clearly, that was the case. The reason why, because we sacrifice children. The next year, we do the same thing.
Why not? Because it worked. Yeah.
And it didn't work this time. Well, I think what we got wrong was we didn't sacrifice enough people. If we just, had maybe 5 more kids, then we have to do it, because now we're hungry, we're starving, and now if we sacrifice 5 more kids, there's also less mouths to feed. So 5 more kids is, it's plus or minus either way. So
there's a win-win, right?
Let's be on the safe side here.
Except for the kids.
Yeah, well, they won't know. They won't. So we sacrifice our kids again. Oh, the harvest is good. Clearly, what we see is sacrificing kids equals a good harvest, and we have to make sure we have the right number in order to appease.
So there is their causal connection.
Right. It's clearly, it has to be the case, at least in that universe. of the multiverses.
Yeah. So he says that Hume taught us then by seeing this countless constant conjunction, right? These things attached to one another over our lifetimes. We become conditioned to believe in the underlying metaphysical glue, right? Nor, he says, can we help but believe in this glue. Nature, again, is too strong for us, right? But the fact that we never see the actual causal connection has important implications for Hume's view of scientific explanation, and not merely for those mechanistic explanations of the new mechanical physics, but for any explanation that we cannot directly observe.
Right. So what we want to do, being good atheists, is we want to say, or
a good skeptic.
A good skeptic is, well, clearly we can't take into account paranormal or deistic events like this as being the case. So we need to look for naturalistic explanations, because if we don't, we bring in other factors that we just don't want to happen. So clearly what we have to accept are the physical mechanistic explanations only.
Yeah, good. And he says that Hume realized that scientific explanations then, though, given this skepticism that he had and the inability to observe causality, scientific explanations have serious limitations, right?
And we're kind of using, already, we have to realize we're using a stolen system because we have no non-circular justification for the system we're using. But then once we use it, we start running into to roadblocks.
Circles on circles on circles, right?